And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Steve Ferreira, CEO of Ocean Audit and host of OK Boomer Live. That's right there. And it's such an honor to be with you on a Wednesday afternoon to help you develop some of the interesting stories in the world of container shipping. And I help you navigate the B2B world that you know and love and hopefully prosper in. So welcome to the show. Today, I wanted to talk about some interesting developments that have gone under the radar with Maersk Line. Now, I really love Maersk. I have a tremendous respect for the men and women that work there. I have many friends there. And I think the world of what they've done in terms of building a brand. And certainly they've been in the news lately with the transformation of Damco and what Maersk may or may not be doing in terms of building a end-to-end product within their business units. But today's story is not about Damco or about what Maersk may or may not be doing in terms of providing services to shippers. But today rather is how Maersk has ratcheted up its fee structure to start looking more like a United or a Delta when it comes to, for example, baggage fees, service fees, change of booking fees, et cetera, et cetera. And I wanted to explore one of those fees today that's really interesting, that really flew under the radar, that has become effective October 1st. So it's been in effect now for a couple of weeks, and it really has not secured much fanfare. As a matter of fact, the first time that Boomer had noticed this new service fee was in working with some of my Ocean Audit clients, where I started to see the service fee being denoted under the signature block of the Maersk Line advisors or employees. So I thought it was really an interesting fee. And I thought to myself, wow, I gotta do some math on this. So if you're into the Boomer lifestyle, you like me, you want to try to quantify everything. And being a data geek, I had to put pen, paper, and calculator to what this new fee might have meant, might mean to Maersk going forward. And so when we look at it in the scope of what's happening in the Trans-Pacific, Transatlantic, and other trades that are having excess of service fees, tightening of bookings, premium fees, and in the Trans-Pacific trades, eastbound trades, of course, all-time high rates, you tend to think that the carriers are grabbing all the revenue they can at the time. Now, will this continue on to 2021? Most likely we'll see a continuation of the market strengthening. I know that the container charter ships are fully booked. And so right now everything looks really rosy. However, is it really the right time to start layering on service fees? Now, I had this idea for the story in some part because of what happened. And I'll read a little note to you today. This is not about Maersk, but more about Hapag. So last week, Hapag-Lloyd became the first Trans-Pacific carrier to announce it was suspending bookings of agricultural products from North America. The decision by the German carrier, which is feared will be followed by its peers, has caused a storm of protests from the U.S. farming community. The carrier was accused by the U.S. Specialty Soya and Grain Alliance, of quote unquote hard economics, chasing premium rates from the unprecedented surge in consumer imports from Asia. So Hapag stopped the agricultural and soybean bookings, right? Which, China deal, trade deal, big deal, right? And then you look at it a little bit and you look at the soybean levels the last 12 months. And in general, I won't get into country by country specifics, but there were 208,000 TEUs of soybeans. And out of that 208,000, Hapag had 12,000. So not even 10% of the total bookings. But it will be interesting to see how that dynamic develops, because the allegation being that Hapag is chasing premium rates and premium fees. And so I started to think, well, wow, that's really interesting. Hapag is moving away from ag products, which has been really a big thing with the Trump and the 301 deals, right? To get that ag buy up from China. But now it seems to be at the sake of profitizing from the burgeoning, expanding, consumer-driven TPEB, Trans-Pacific eastbound market. Now, as we've seen with the investment firm Jefferies in their study of the resupply of America, it appears that this resupply of America will continue well on to 2021, creating a condition where rates and fees continue to proliferate in the favor of the ocean freight vendors, carriers, freight forwarders, etc. So let me introduce why these new charges are serious to be put on your radar, and why might this charge that I'm going to introduce today, why did it fly under the radar? Maybe it didn't. Maybe your boomer here is just a little out of touch. But to me, it appears that this charge sneaked in there, and I think that is a slippery slope. So without further ado, let me explain the parameters for today's show on these Maersk the secret plan of Maersk, which is not really so secret since it's public data that I'll be sharing. And again, if you're just joining our show today, this is an impromptu version of OK Boomer Live. I'm your host, Steve Ferreira. I'm CEO of Ocean Audit in Hartford, Connecticut, and it's a pleasure to bring you the latest and most interesting stories in container shipping, ocean freight, and business to business. So let me please share my screen with you. And without further ado, we'll talk about the secret plan. So what is the secret plan? Well, it's not so secret as I mentioned. October 1st, there was a development at Maersk where they decided, meaning Maersk, to introduce a $100 bill of lading fee for cash customers that were more than 7 days late. That's right. So this is a $100 surcharge if you're a cash customer, not a credit or on terms. So that those invoices are out of the question. But cash customers only that exceed 7 days. So you're 8 days late, you'll be getting an invoice, a supplemental invoice for Maersk from $100. And I'm thinking this, as the preeminent ocean freight auditor, for your global invoices, I'm thinking, oh boy, another fee, another invoice. Just how much can the beneficial cargo owner shipper base take of fee structures and invoicing? But nonetheless, Maersk has gone ahead and invoked this plan October 1st. Well, let's roll out a little bit of what that means. And I am saying to you that this is giving them the equivalent of 10,000 40-foot containers of revenue without having to lift a finger. Just basically saying, oops, sorry, you're 1 day over, so please accept our invoice for $100. And I haven't seen any pushback, unless I'm living under a rock somewhere. I haven't seen anywhere published that, hey, we're forming a coalition to, push back against these added fees. But let's take the math to some of the most ridiculous or obvious analogies that we can and see what you think. So if we look at the total number of invoices inbound and outbound from the USA, not containers, but actual invoices. So what is an invoice? An invoice could be one container, or it could be 150 containers on that invoice. It doesn't really matter. It's still an invoice. It's an invoice for $2,000 or an invoice for $250,000. So if you assume that my count is correct, which it is because I have the latest and greatest data, they issued about 1.1 million invoices in 2020 so far, year to date. That's not a year, it's up to October, where we are now. Now, if we assume that half of those invoices are cash customers, it may well be 60%, it may be 45%. I don't have that number, obviously, but let's just assume 550,000 of those invoices are cash customers, right? And let's assume 50% of those cash customers go beyond that 7-day grace period. So now we're down to 275,000 invoices. So Maersk will invoke a penalty of $100 times the 275,000 K. So that's about $28 million in new revenue. And the first thing I thought about was, Steve, this is like, flying Swiss Air, or not Swiss Air, but Delta or American, where you get dinged for a baggage fee. And to be one day late and to get a fee, it's a real slippery slope, especially the way that the cadence and the velocity of where, Trans-Pacific eastbound rates have gone. For example, so you're getting generating about 30 million bottom line dollars clean revenue, really minimal expenses allocated against that 30 million. You might say that there's a $2 or $3 expense to have somebody in the Philippines or India process a late fee. But it's more than a late fee. This is really going to obfuscate and confuse the general market in terms of their billing, right? So it's another bill to say, hey, to research or to dispute. Try calling an ocean vendor. It's not easy. I tried, for example, as a test case to call Maersk today to get a little bit more clarification on this. I spent about 30 minutes and, it wasn't easy to get through. It was actually a real challenge because of the way the VoIP works through, and again, I'm just guessing, through India or the Philippines where, they're taking some of these calls. So I think that the issue at hand here really has to be studied. And the easy money, this is really easy money because it's obviously, almost the clock is on, right? Whether you go past the 7 days, you get the invoice. You get the invoice, then you've got, 35 to 60 minutes of dispute time associated with this. So it's really impacting the profitability of the general clients at hand, and especially the ocean audit clients that I work with, have another layer of invoicing to deal with. So I wanted to get your opinion in terms of what you guys thought and whether or not the proliferation of fees is something that you're seeing and you will see, within your own freight forwarders, other ocean carriers. This is just really not Maersk. I think Maersk is to the point now where they're willing to experiment with a lot of these fees and charges because in some ways they can, right? Because the game is more stilted towards them having more cards than you do as a BCO. You need their space. And we get that. But at the same time, a fair and balanced price and price structure and invoice control is something that should follow along as well. Now, with the alternatives going from a cash to a credit customer, I think in this environment may be more challenging to move into that credit environment with them just because A, they don't have the resources or probably don't have the resources. And now I'm kind of talking about general steamship lines and freight forwarders. It's not like, it's a 7-day, a 2-day process. You go from cash to credit. If anything, they definitely would want more of the cash customers to avoid, getting into those ugly out of term disputes that all the lines go through in the first place. Anyways, so this is a real conundrum. I think that the solution really lies in the fact that the clients may want to, on cash, may want to consider a potential amendment or a notation to the service contract that prevents this $100 fee from being charged. I think that you could possibly say, if it's, I'm just kind of making this up as we go along, 14 days over as a cash customer, then the $100 fee could apply. But I think you need to work with your local representatives, and whether it's Maersk or someone else follows or jumps on this, because the chances are that somebody else will jump on this fee structure as well. So in closing, I am pleased that we have a chance to talk today about this special situation that's developing. And if we see more of this, you'll certainly hear it from OK Boomer live. And I just want to check before I conclude our opening remarks or our closing remarks on this. I think that John Monroe has pointed out some really good points, that the imbalance of containers on the Trans-Pacific is definitely an issue that they're dealing with. And so having ways to make that up, economically, give the ocean vendor that kind of extra oomph that they need to rebalance. And it's the same thing with the Hapag-Lloyd issue on the soybeans. So I want to say thanks. It's great to be here in front of all of you today. And I also want to announce that I'll be doing some special television work on a weekly basis for the good folks at FreightWaves TV that have asked me to help them with produce and write and host content on the ocean freight, container freight trades in general, but more specifically, navigating the entire B2B structure in terms of sales, marketing, personalities, personas, and developing your own persona to maximize your own income and wealth. And it really fits well into where I want to take myself and Ocean Audit into the future as I combine my TV work with some of the new books that I've been signed to by a publisher to put out in 2021, which I look forward to sharing more details with you on those. It's a lot of work, but I'll tell you. But I love it, and I want to say I love my audience, and my customers are the most important thing to convey my special feelings for. And I'll always be there to help you through these rigorous billing periods where your organizations and finance leaders and logistics leaders are definitely challenged. So I'll just say one last thing about that is I know right now the velocity of your invoicing is probably at an all-time high, but also at an all-time low in terms of the accuracy. So I really encourage all my customers and potential customers out there, whether you're working with me or someone else, make sure that you're looking at all the invoice components, because fee structures like we talked about today with Maersk Line and other potential positioning fees, and there's a new structure coming out where to avoid demurrage, you can take the containers to an off-dock location. The problem is you're still going to get billed for the off-dock location, and you're going to get billed to pre-pull the containers out of the CY facility of the ocean vendor. So there's a lot of new fees that are out there that are not being well publicized, and you can certainly look for some squirreliness in your invoicing, both now and over the next several months. So that always should be measured and displayed and quality controlled through the best audit that you can muster up internally or externally, be it with Ocean Audit or someone else. So in closing, I want to thank my audience for another great session. You'll look for me. My debut show on FreightWaves will be November 5th with a very, very special guest that doesn't give many interviews. And we've already lined up some other presidents and CEOs that will give great fidelity to what they're doing in the market and add a new dimension to your daily lifestyle, whether you're a logistics, a finance, a supply chain, or a transportation leader. So Thank you again from Hartford, Connecticut. I'm Steve Ferreira signing off. You've been watching OK Boomer Live. Please get back to me via email or LinkedIn messaging box if I can address any question you may have. I'll see you all soon, and thank you for being such a great audience. Have a great day.